But before we get started, we'll say a prayer that the Lord is with us, and then we'll start. Okay, so please pray with me. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the warmer weather that is about to come in the upcoming days. We ask that you bless this time, that you give us your holy word, that you give us your grace and your faith, that we may continue to grow in our faith in you and all of the things that you have done for us. All these things we ask in the holy precious name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Okay, so chapter 37, you can pretty much, now I don't want you to do this, okay? But you can pretty much forget everything I've taught you about Genesis. Because chapter 37 is completely different. It starts a whole new section, okay? So if you're going to divide up Genesis, there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. We can divide up Genesis as most commentators divide it up. For the first 11 chapters, you call that prehistory. And then chapters 12 through 50, we have the patriarch. Okay? So that's fine. That's good. It's a fine way to divide it up. But in my mind, as a teacher, there's too many chapters in here to keep them all straight. We can keep 11 chapters straight, or we should be able to keep 11 chapters straight. Okay? So what happened in the first 11 chapters of Genesis?
Creation.
Chapter 1?
Creation.
Creation. Chapter 2?
Fall.
Creation.
Oh, well, yeah.
Chapter 3?
Fall.
The fall. Chapter 4?
Moses.
Cain and Abel. We haven't even gotten to
I know,
Moses
go
yet.
on.
Okay. Chapter 5, genealogy. Chapter 6, 7, and 8, and even 9, the flood. Chapter 10, genealogy. Chapter 11, Tower of Babel. Okay, so that's like the first prehistory stuff. And then, so the division that I prefer for Genesis is Genesis 1 through 11, prehistory. And then Genesis 12 through 25 is Abraham. And then Genesis 26 through 36 is Isaac, but most of it is Jacob, because Isaac is really only in 2 chapters. So you can put Isaac in the middle of this. And then Genesis chapter 37 through 50 is all about Joseph. Joseph. Is that dark enough that you can see it? Do I need to get a new marker?
I can't see it.
You can't see it? Okay. I don't use this marker anymore.
Move it a little bit. There you go.
No? Too much glare. So when I teach Genesis, this is kind of the schema that I have in my head to remember what happens in which chapter. Okay? So the other major chapters that we need to remember, we've got Genesis 1 and 2, creation. Genesis 3 is the fall. Genesis 6 through 9 is the flood. Genesis 11 is the Tower of Babel. Genesis 12, 15, and 17 is God's promise to Abraham and the covenant. So this is really going to be the ones that are going to keep on coming up in Genesis, even in the Joseph story. Genesis 12 is when the sending of Abraham from Ur, okay? And then 15 is when the pot floats through the dead carcasses. We talked about that already. And then in Genesis chapter 17, that's the circumcision. Okay? Does anybody want a review on any of those chapters? We're good to go? Okay? So now, because we're starting Genesis chapter 37 here, write this in black so that you can see it. The last 14 chapters of Genesis are all about Joseph. And we're going to start, the first verse is going to say Jacob, and it has to do with Jacob. Jacob doesn't die, I don't think, until chapter 47 or 49 or something like that. So Jacob is still alive almost to the end of Genesis. But really, the story is about Joseph. And really, when you read it, and you're going to even realize this, even without really studying the words, that Genesis 37 through 50 reads a lot differently than the rest of Genesis. No one really thinks that it's a different author, but with the story of Abraham and the story of Isaac and Jacob, you get all of these little snippets, right? Like, oh, they went down to Egypt and went to Abimelech, or they had this little thing where they had to buy the cave in Machpelah, or something like that. And so you get these chapters that have little sections, and sometimes it's hard to piece them all together. The Joseph story is this really long chapter by chapter narrative that reads completely different, and it almost seems like a play. So, surprise, surprise, we have Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which we can watch if we would like here. It's not incredibly biblically based. We're actually going to learn today that the title for that is really, really wrong. Okay? Not that the story that they portray is wrong, but the name is maybe not the best name that we could have used. Okay? So if you like that play, if you listen to the music, totally fine. Don't worry about it. It's not going to lead you astray or anything. But there's a reason why they made a play out of this, because it's actually really, it lends itself really well to a dramatic screenplay, shall we say. All right. So let's get started with 37. We're starting the last section of Genesis. This is actually really, really cool because we've been on Genesis for a little bit since I've been here, right? So, talking a year and 5 months. So, hopefully we'll get this done by the end of the summer. Okay? Here we go. Read the first 4 verses because we're going to have some questions about that. Jacob lived in the land of his father's sojournings in the land of Canaan, and these are the generations of Jacob. Do we remember this? Do you remember why this is important? If you don't, you need to underline it and put a little star there. Okay? These are the generations of Jacob. The generations is one of the signs or one of the words used in Genesis to tell you that it's a new section in the book. Okay? In Hebrew, it's teledoth. There's 10 of them in Genesis. This is the last of the 10. So everything else is going to fall under this title of Jacob, even though it's all going to be about Joseph. Just like how Abraham fell under Terah, his father, Joseph is going to fall under Jacob. Okay? So this is it's a big deal that we have this generations here, because it tells us that it's a new section. Okay? So Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. He was a boy with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a robe of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all of his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peace to him. Okay. What do we think? What do we got? What's the scene?
Bad parenting.
Tell me about it.
Gee, I mean, that's the perfect way to cause divisions in your families.
Number one way to cause a family strife is favoritism,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And in most families, kids feel that the parents like one kid over the other kid, and it causes strife for the rest of their lives.
Usually the youngest.
Usually, or the middle, or however you want to do it, right?
I'm the youngest.
Well, I think it's okay for me to say this, but my sister is the youngest. There's only two of us, right? So you have the eldest and the youngest. And so now that my sister has kids, she has 3 kids, and she sees the play between the 3 of them, maybe more than she did before she had kids, right? And she's like, well, now this one wants this, and this one wants that. I'm like, that was exactly what you did. How do you not know this? Like, it doesn't register, right? So bad parenting, we have favoritism. What is that supposed to remind you of?
Esau. Yeah.
Jacob and Esau, right? So Jacob was favored by his mom, whose name was,
No.
it's hard to keep it all straight in your head,
Sarah? No,
Rebecca. And Esau was favored by the father, who was Isaac. Okay? And we have all of the strife with the birthright and the deceiving and the blessing and all of this stuff. Okay? So obviously Jacob either learned that this is okay from his mother, even though it caused strife through his family for over 22 years, or he just didn't learn his lesson and is continuing to do this. Either way, Jacob does not come across as wise. And he comes across as a bad parent. Okay? So that's number 1. What else?
Favoritism, they're afraid, the other ones are afraid, this birthright thing. He's getting this fancy coat.
So we're going to assume, right, that there's going to be some type of blessing. So far we've had Abraham who blesses Isaac, and Isaac blesses, it's supposed to be Esau, but it turns out to be Jacob. We would assume that these brothers, these 12 sons, are going to know that there's a blessing coming up. And they're afraid, maybe, that Joseph's going to get it instead of, who's the eldest? You have to remember, you don't have to remember all 12 in order, but you have to remember the first 4. Okay? So what's the first 4? Reuben's number 1. Simeon is number 2. Levi is number 3. And Judah is number 4. The rest of them, Gad, Asher, Issachar, I don't care if you remember those in order, okay? Because I don't have them memorized in order. But you have to know the first 4 because they're going to come into play. Okay? So we got Reuben, not the sandwich. Simeon, not the apostle. Levi, not the tax collector. And Judah, not the lion. Okay? So maybe Reuben is afraid, right? That he's not going to get the blessing because he's the firstborn. It's possible. It doesn't say that, but that's probable to think that. Okay, so we have favoritism. We have maybe the brothers are afraid. But what's the verb that's used here for the brothers?
Hated.
They hate him. The opposite of love. They cannot even say a peaceful word to him. So that, like this enmity, which is another Genesis word from Genesis 3:15, this enmity is getting not only worse, because before it was just Jacob and Esau, you've got one brother that hates you. Now we've got 11 that are against you, and this is pretty bad. Okay? So not only is it getting worse, but it's the opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. Okay? Now, why does Jacob love Joseph so much?
He was his, a blood son.
Well, they're all his sons.
Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel.
Well, it's Rachel, his most loved wife, but what does it say here in 37?
His old age.
Because he had it in his old age. So you can make the argument that he's the youngest, and so he's the one that he had last in his eldest age, which makes him the favorite. But really, I think it goes back to your original statement. I just think it's really bad parenting, right? Or at least it's not the way that we as modern people would parent our children. Or at least I would hope not.
Well, he was using him to give bad reports, to keep an eye on his brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you set up...
Okay. That's a whole new topic. So tell me about it. No, that's great. Tell me about it.
Well, you know, he's a favorite, but he's also kind of manipulating Joseph to spy on his brothers.
Well, use a different word than manipulate. So if we have Joseph telling on his brothers, what's the word that we use for that? He's a tattletale.
Nobody likes that.
He's a little jerk. The brothers are just trying to do, like, I don't like this term. I don't love it, right? Boys are gonna be boys. You can't make a teenage boy not be a teenage boy, right? They're probably picking on him. They're probably doing things that, like, he doesn't like, or they're climbing rocks where they're not supposed to. It doesn't say what they're doing, but they're doing, quote unquote, something they're not supposed to do, a bad report. And Joseph's kind of like, well, I'm going to tell Daddy. Well, how is that? What are they supposed to think about him? Of course he's not going to be their favorite. That's ridiculous. So not only can we blame Jacob for bad parenting, we can blame Joseph for kind of being a weasel. Right? So again, we've seen this many, many times in Genesis. When there's sin, it's going to be doubled, right? Sin begets sin. It's not going to be on the side of one party. Both parties are going to be at fault, which is generally how sin works, even in our own relationships and in our families, right? Well, I get mad at you for doing this, so not only was that a sin that you did, but now the being angry is the sin as well. And then it just kind of revolves around the nucleus of sin, and then everybody's at fault, and then finally you don't even know what you're mad about anymore, right? So, okay, good. Now let's get to the part that might blow your minds a little bit, because when I did this, it blew my mind. So, like I said, Genesis chapter 37 starts a whole new section. It also, the Hebrew from now until the end of the book gets a lot easier, because it's easier to read a narrative when you know kind of like the words are repeated and you can kind of follow along with what's going to happen. So before chapter 37, I'm not good enough at Hebrew to translate a chapter a week. Like, that's a lot for me. But I'm starting now because the Hebrew is a lot easier. So one of the things that I learned about chapter 37 when I read this was from verse 3. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a robe of many colors. So the Hebrew does not say many colors, and that threw me for a loop, okay? So the Hebrew word is pas. Great, okay? It just means wide or breadth. So he made him a wide coat, a big coat. Why? Because he's 17 and probably going to grow into it, which is what we do too. Gosh, I hated those Christmases. When I was 17, I hated it because I'd always get my sweatshirts that were the extra, extra large. And my everyone would say, oh, well, you'll grow into it. Well, I can't do anything with it now. I have to wait 5 years until I actually get muscles so I can wear it. It drove me crazy. Okay, so we have to ask ourselves the question then, where does this many-colored concept come in? Because this has nothing to do with color. This has to do with size. Okay? So, when you read the Septuagint, does anybody know what the Septuagint is besides Amanda?
He discussed it.
Do you know what the Septuagint is?
It's either the Latin or the Greek.
Okay.
I always get it confused which is which.
Yeah,
I'm not.
that's
reading it.
fair. So the Septuagint, oh, gold star, anybody? Septuagint?
Desired or favored or,
No.
no?
The Septuagint, it comes from the word 70, okay? So when Greek became the lingua franca, or the regular language that was spoken around the empire, people couldn't read Hebrew anymore. The Jews couldn't read Hebrew, they could only read Greek. So what they did was they took 70 scholars that took the Hebrew Old Testament and translated it into Greek. So it's like a little bit more of an explanation. It helps us understand more because we have more information about Greek than we do about Hebrew, ancient Greek and ancient Hebrew. Okay? So sometimes when we don't really understand a Hebrew word, because sometimes they're only used once in the whole Bible, and it's the only time we've ever seen any reference to it, it's hard to know exactly what it means. So we go to the Septuagint to try to get a little bit more information. Okay? So the Septuagint says poikilos, which means varied. Okay? So if you have a varied cloak or a varied robe, that's where we get the concept of many colors. What would be another explanation to that besides colors?
The pattern.
It might be a different pattern, because I think a lot of the clothes didn't have a lot of pattern, because pattern takes a long time to make. Okay, so pattern would make it more special than maybe some of the other brothers wouldn't have had. What else could be in the pattern besides colors?
gold,
Texture.
Different textures, different types of cloth or animal hide that might have been more valuable than some regular cotton or linen or flax or whatever it would have been. Okay? So when we, because we know our musicals, right? So when we have the Technicolor dream coat, it could be a dream coat. It may not have been Technicolor, right? Because you have that song. It was red and green and crimson and gold and well, maybe not all of those colors. Okay? It probably was varied. It had many ornaments to it somehow, but it may not have been like, the stripes of every color, and he turns around and it's amazing, right? So that was something that I learned when I read this chapter, that I did not know that last week. Okay? So that kind of changes my mind a little bit about it, because I think growing up, I mean, you know the musical, we listen to the song in the car, and you think about all these amazing colors. Well, maybe it was just a regular coat that looked really fancy. Okay? So, all right. We spent a half hour on the first 4 verses. We can get through this, I promise. All right, here we go. Verse 5 through 8. Now Joseph had a dream. Okay, so when you are reading this in Hebrew, with the dream stuff, whenever it talks about a dream, it doesn't say he had a dream. It always has it double. So he dreamed a dream, is what it says. And that's supposed to get your attention to let you know that something special is happening. Whenever the Hebrew doubles it, that's an important thing to know. So, really it says, now Joseph dreamed a dream. And he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So they hated him. And he said to them, hear this dream that I have dreamed. Behold, okay, good. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright. Well, la-di-da. And behold, your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. His brother said to him, are you indeed to reign over us? So are you going to reigning? Are you going to reign over us? Are you indeed going to rule over us? So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. So this is the 3rd time we've been told that they hated him. Okay? This is not good. We can feel the tension in the air. Alright? I am not a farmer. I think you guys know that already. I am a city boy. Do we still, when you bind hay, you have to do that?
You put it in a bale.
Put it in a
bale.
Bale of hay.
You don't call it a sheaf?
No.
What's a sheaf? A sheaf is when it's standing up and it's...
I think a sheaf is more like a section. Like if you take a bale apart, you have a section of
Flake.
That's a flake.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. So I think the sheaf is when it's standing up and you bind it together, and it's the really tall ones, right? So I mean that's always been a weird word to me.
Well, that's
in
how
English.
and they dry it in the field like
And
that.
then it kind of fans out a little bit. I think that was the best they could do at that time, because they didn't have the balers.
Right.
Is that, okay, that's a word. Right. Anything about this?
Joseph is proud, and he sees nothing wrong with basically, look at me, I'm going to be better than
I
you.
am so much better than you guys. Listen to the dream that I had. I mean, he really does come off as hyper and lame.
Adds fuel to the fire.
He's not only adding fuel to the fire by telling them that they're bad, but he's unlikable. right? He's that little brat kid that says, oh, I'm better than you are. He's just kind of like, right? So they hate him, hate him, hate him.
And it's a three beholds.
It's a three beholds. It's a really big deal. Okay. Yeah. Good. I'm glad you caught on to that. Thank you. Thank you for indulging me. Okay. So verse 9 through 11. And he dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers and said, behold, I have dreamed another dream. Behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me. But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, what is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you? And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the saying in mind. Don't turn the page yet, we gotta talk about it. Alright, so what we got?
Well, he's not just saying his brothers are gonna be bowing down, now it's the parents.
So it's increasing,
Yes.
right? Now let's put our minds to the test here, okay? Joseph's father's name is Jacob. It shouldn't take you that long to think about it. It's already been in this section, okay? Joseph's mother is Rachel. What happened to Rachel?
She was barren.
Has she died already? Last chapter? 35?
Yes.
Yeah.
Rachel died.
Rachel's student, yeah.
And yet, we have the son, and that's why at the beginning of the chapter, it doesn't mention, it says Bilhah's sons and Zilpah's sons. It doesn't mention Rachel at the beginning of the chapter, because she's already dead. Okay? So, what's the sun and the moon and the star? We get the sun is supposed to be the dad. We get that the stars is supposed to be the sons. What's the, we don't know. Okay? Maybe it's just the, are dreams ever completely literal? If the sun is going to bow and the stars are going to bow, it doesn't make sense that the moon is going to do it too, without some kind of antecedent to what it's going to be, right? So that's an interesting thing. The brothers now don't only hate him, but now they're jealous of him as well. Maybe because they want power? Whatever you want to say about them. But his father kept the saying in mind? What are we supposed to make out of that?
I think he's thinking that maybe there's more to it, that maybe God's talking through Joseph or something, that he's got to pay attention a little bit here.
Okay, so before these verses, Jacob was coming across as being rather dumb. Or maybe dumb's too strong of a word. He's being lazy. He's being a bad parent. But now we see kind of this flip side where, hey, maybe he is going to be an adult and keep the saying in mind and listen to his child. But we have to go on and see what's going to happen. Okay? Does that remind you of anything in keeping the saying in mind? A lot of people make the connection with Mary treasuring it in her heart. Okay? It's a completely different phrase. It doesn't come up that often in the Bible. Okay?
Can I ask a question?
Of course. I will be disappointed if you don't.
Why does he then say, shall I and your mother?
What do you think?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Rachel's dead.
Right.
So, he makes the automatic connection with the sun and the moon being the father and the mother. Right? So, that doesn't really make sense. Go ahead.
Where did Benjamin come from if Rachel's dead?
Benjamin already come?
Because he said he loved him because he was
Well, Joseph knew from
Rachel, but Benjamin
I
was
think-
younger than Joseph.
Isn't Benjamin,
He's young.
wasn't he born already?
I think he has to be, because when Joseph was in Egypt.
I agree, I just don't remember reading it. 35? 35:18. Yeah, so Rachel dies in childbirth, giving birth to Benjamin, not to Joseph. So Benjamin is born. So that makes you also think, well, why isn't Benjamin the favorite?
Yeah.
If he's the youngest, but maybe because Joseph is the firstborn of his favorite wife, that he's the favorite one? Like, what is going on in the head of Jacob? It's crazy, right? Okay, good. So let's do, this is a new,
Is there any significance to the 11 stars?
the 11 brothers.
Oh.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so Joseph is sold by his brothers. We all know the story, right? Or I'm hoping we all know the story. Now his brothers went to pasture their father's flock near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers pasturing the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." And he said to them, "Here I am." So he said to him, "Go now, see if it is well with your brothers with the flock, and bring me word." So he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a man found him wandering in the fields. And the man asked him, "What are you seeking?" "I am seeking my brothers," he said. "Tell me, please, where they are pasturing the flock." And the man said, "They have gone away, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. So what does it say about the relationship between Jacob and Joseph?
So did they say, we're going to this place, but they actually went to somewhere else?
No, I think that maybe the pasturing fields just would have been better at the other place, so they tried the one place where Jacob told them, and they're just kind of moving on for something better. Maybe, I don't think that's a sin or a bad part of the story. I don't think the brothers are doing anything wrong.
Joseph now is being sent to basically spy on.
To spy on them, be a messenger, be his whipping boy. I don't know what's the best way to say that, but it's kind of weird that all of the other brothers went and Joseph didn't have to go. He's 17, he's old enough, he can help, but he's just gonna be his dad's favorite in the tent or something? I don't know. It's also weird that they found a man, that a man had overheard them talking about going to Dothan. It's a little odd. So they saw him from afar, but before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. Dun, dun, dun. And they said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer." So now, this is the title that they have for him. It's no longer our brother, it's no longer the annoying one, it's this dreamer guy. Okay? "Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we will say that a fierce animal has devoured him, and we will see what will become of his dreams." But when Reuben heard it, he rescued him out of their hands, saying, "Let us not take his life." And Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood. Throw him into this pit here into the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hand to restore him to his father." So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors that he wore, and they took him and threw him into the pit. And the pit was empty, for there was no water in it.
So when Reuben, he's got a little soft spot in his heart for Joseph, or
He's got a little soft spot. Okay, so who is Reuben?
The
The firstborn. So taking a little bit of responsibility over the brothers because he's quote unquote technically in charge. Okay, so this is good-ish for Reuben, right? Let's not kill him, let's just hurt him a little bit. Okay? Let's teach this boy a lesson. Throw him in the pit.
See if he dreams about that.
See if he dreams about that one. Right? Okay, so like, Reuben isn't coming across as amazing, but he may be better than the other brothers at this point. Okay? Anything else? It's pretty drastic to kill him, right? They think they can get away with it by saying that an animal devoured him. Okay, now let's think about this. Is this like a common thing to just be eaten up by lions on the side of the road? To be like if you're around deer, are they gonna like come up and let you pet them? Of course not. They're gonna run away. So like, what kind of wild animal is wandering around Israel that's gonna be able to kill him? Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Like it just seems like kind of a far-fetched idea. I mean, it's possible. What do I know about mountain lions, right? But it just seems like a lot to me, okay? All right, verse 25. And they sat down to eat, and looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites. Okay, who are the Ishmaelites?
The offspring
of Esau.
The offspring of Ishmael. And who is Ishmael? Abraham's first son with Hagar, the Egyptian slave of Sarah. Okay, so Ishmael has been cast out. He was going to be a wild donkey of a man, and he had a whole bunch of kids, married, I think, an Egyptian. Okay, so now the Ishmaelites are living out there, and they're doing trading with Egypt. Okay, so how are the Israelites, Jacob's family, going to feel about the Ishmaelites? There's automatic conflict, animosity between them. Okay? But these Ishmaelites are traitors. Maybe they'll take something for the money. Okay? So the Ishmaelites are coming from Gilead with their camels bearing gum, balm, and myrrh to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brother, now this is Judah, this is Reuben. What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our own flesh. And his brothers listened to him. And the Midianite traders passed by, and they drew Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt. There should be a glaring error here for you.
It was in 30 pieces.
Oh, okay, that's a good connection. Okay, so Jesus was sold for 30 pieces of silver. Joseph is sold for 20 pieces of silver, so that would be a typology, right? That Jesus was sold, betrayed by his brothers, the Jewish people, by Judah, okay? Why the difference in money? For $20 shekels was the normal going rate. Judas got 30. Why? Because it's a couple centuries later. Inflation? It's possible. Or Jesus was just that special that they gave him a 50% cut raise. Okay? Either way you cut it, it's still being traded for silver. which is your point. Okay? So, there should be a glaring error here in this paragraph.
Well, I'm confused, they're gonna sell them to the Ishmaelites, are they also Midianites?
Are they Ishmaelites or are they Midianites? And what's the difference? Because they were called Ishmaelites twice and now they're Midianites. Okay, now you have to know your Old Testament history in order to know this. Who is Midian? Where is Midian? It's a place. We haven't gotten to it yet. It's going to come up in Exodus chapter 3. Okay? Do we remember Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, if you watch the Ten Commandments, right? Just happened with Easter, right? Jethro is Moses' father-in-law. His daughter was Zipporah, who married Moses. And Jethro was the priest of Midian. Okay? So, now we have to know where Midian is in our little map. So, how do we draw our map? Big J. Then what?
Little circle,
Little circle.
line down, big old.
Squiggly line and
Circle.
bigger oval. Crudest map of Israel you can get, but it works every time. Okay? Now, down here, you get the Sinai Peninsula, right? And then there's a little thing of water down here called the Gulf of Aqaba. Okay? On the other side of the Gulf, right here, is Midian. Okay? And guess where the Ishmaelites lived? In Midian. So, Moses, the author of Genesis, is saying, hey, these Ishmaelites, aka Midianites, aka the people that live in Midian, the people descended from Ishmael, are the ones that are selling Joseph into slavery in Egypt. So it seems like there's an error because they switched the names, but it's really just the same group of people. Okay? So what would be an example that we have of that?
They switch names all the time. Jacob's Israel.
Well, I was saying more like in modern times, right? You refer to the kids that go to Croslex High School as
The pioneers.
the pioneers, but also they're from Croswell, also from Lexington. It's all the same thing, right? Or if we want to be a little bit more racial about it, if I said Hamtramck to you, what are you going to think?
Polish.
Polish people, right? It's just it's what it is, right? It's not a bad thing. But if I say those people from Hamtramck, or I say Polish people, you're going to think the same thing when you think of Detroit, okay? Or West Bloomfield, rich Jewish people, okay? Like that's just how it is, okay? So it's the same thing. Midianites, Ishmaelites, doesn't matter the name. Okay? So, good. Anything else about Judah here? Reuben says, hey, just throw him in a pit for a while. He'll learn his lesson. Not a big deal. Judah's like, hey, we'll listen to Reuben. We won't hurt him. Just sell him into slavery. Make a quick buck.
Out of sight, out of mind, no blood.
Out of sight, out of mind, no blood, no problem. Maybe we can take his coat.
After all, he is their brother, their own flesh.
Yeah, don't hurt him.
Yeah,
Just sell him. People are ridiculous. Okay, finish this out. You didn't believe me that I said we were going to do the whole chapter after we did the first half hour for 4 verses. Huh?
I
Okay.
believe you, because you said, what, 1 or 2 weeks you were on the first verse of Genesis.
I know. All right. So when Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not in the pit, he tore his clothes and returned to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone, and where shall I go?" Then they took Joseph's robe and slaughtered a goat and dipped the robe in the blood. And they sent the robe of many colors, the varied colored thing, and brought it to their father and said, This we have found. Please identify whether it is your son's robe or not." And he identified it and said, "It is my son's robe. A fierce animal has devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his garments and put sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his son many days. All of his sons and daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, "No, I shall go down to Sheol to my son mourning." Thus his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold him into Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard.
Reuben wasn't aware what the brothers had done.
Where is Reuben?
Yeah, why wasn't he there?
Why wasn't he with... Maybe he was in charge of watching the sheep for his turn, and the other brothers did this from behind his back? Maybe he was going to the bathroom? I mean, come on, like, what are you supposed to say? This is really weird. Okay? What else?
They pretend they...
Where shall I go?
Pardon?
What's that reference to?
Okay,
Where shall I go?
So Reuben says, "The boy is gone, and where shall I go?" What does that mean? Vasis Los.
Afraid to go home.
He's afraid to go home. Why?
Sort of lost it.
His dad maybe considers Reuben in charge of the brothers, which is maybe why Reuben didn't want to hurt him in the first place.
Yeah, you're supposed to protect your brother.
But Reuben is going to have to pay the price for the brothers' misstep. So okay, I'm not an expert. I mean, yes, I was a teenage boy, but I'm not an expert in teenage boy psychology. What's going on right now? It's pandemonium. We're going to do the opposite of what our brother who's in charge says. We're going to listen to the fourth one for some reason, because maybe he's taller, stronger than the rest of them. We don't know. But there's really no rhyme or reason to it. Okay? What else?
I think Reuben's afraid that he's gonna get in, he's gonna get the wrath of his father for coming back and saying, Joseph got killed by an animal. Well, where were you?
I think you're exactly right. What else in this section?
Jumping to the end, Jacob doesn't want to be comforted by anybody.
He doesn't want to be comforted. Now, we need to remember that word comfort. Okay? It's Nacham, N-A-H-A-M, Nacham. And that is where the word Noah comes from. To comfort. Okay? So we have this new play on the word Noah, or a different play on the word to comfort. And this time, Jacob refuses to be comforted. Even though Noah did his job, he comforted the world by giving them hope for a future with the ark, Jacob's saying, "No, I refuse." But what does he actually say?
Well, he's grieving.
What does he actually say?
I shall go down to Sheol to
I'm
my
going to
son.
go down to Sheol. What is Sheol?
Death.
That is the Hebrew word for hell. He is damning himself to hell because he lost his favorite son. That's not good. Maybe that's grief talking. I don't think he really means it. He doesn't act like that in the future. But initially, his initial comment is not good. He would rather mourn than do anything else. Now, Jacob also assumes when he sees the blood that Joseph was devoured by a wild animal, which makes it seem like maybe it's a little bit more common than what we would think. Because notice that they didn't tell him. That's something that Jacob assumes for himself. Okay?
Wasn't there a passage with David? He was really good with a sling, and he was to protect the flocks, and he killed a lion.
A lion.
With a sling.
Mm-hmm.
So there must have been some pretty heavy-duty predators.
I don't think that lions were confined to a 100 square radius like they are now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Probably had a lot more free reign over the area. Good. Anything else? No one's gonna talk about the sackcloth?
Covering his loins.
He put on scratchy underwear to mourn, so that no matter what he was doing, he would be reminded that he's supposed to be mourning. We don't do that now. We do the opposite of that. We're always trying to make ourselves feel better. Jacob was trying to actually feel the pain, literally. Maybe that's a better way to do it, psychologically. And if you have questions about that, you can ask Amanda. Okay? Okay. Comments, questions, concerns, weather reports, sports scores, yes.
Verse 22,
Yep,
the last piece of it.
22.
The beginning starts with, and Reuben said to them, shed no blood, throw me into this pit, here is wilderness. And this is where I question. But do not lay a hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hand and restore him.
Yeah, so Hebrew's really, really bad with pronouns. So the he we're assuming is Reuben is trying to save Joseph from the hands of his brother. That's how we interpret that he. And that's why he said that.
Okay. But he's saying that about himself then.
Well, then it's kind of like an aside, like the author is giving us the reason why he's talking about that. Okay? Yeah. Good. Yeah, the water, there was no water in it, so it was impossible for him to drown, which is what some people may assume with a cistern or a well or a pit, right? That, oh no, this didn't really happen, he drowned. Well, no, they're like very specific. No, he was sold. Okay? Good. All right, that's our time. So next week we'll do chapter 38. Chapter 38 is one of my least favorite chapters in the entire book. We may move on to, we might try to do 2 chapters in one day. We'll see how it goes. Okay? So let's say the Lord's Prayer, and we'll move on. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory